This AI voice agent generated £33,468 in potential revenue in just a span of 19 days. It's all done with just 800 leads that has been sitting completely untouched in a CRM for months. So in this video, I'll walk you through this entire case study and I'll explain to you how I was able to pull this off for this company that is based in the UK. So just to give you an overview, they are a claims management company and they help tenants basically who are working and experiencing long-term housing condition issues. So things like damp and mold, things that basically could cause health issues as well. What they do is they help these tenants file claims, and if the claims are successful, they give them a compensation and they take a percentage of that. So over the past few years, they have accumulated thousands of leads, exactly around 35K. And a lot of these leads has been just sitting there for a long time, right? No one has actually properly tried to reach out to every single one of them, and it's just too big to be able to reach out to every single one of them. So this led to an opportunity that we were able to try to run like a reactivation campaign, and try to reach out to as many of them as possible, and try to see if they still need something like this, like a service to file claims. And what we did for this case study specifically is we actually were able to test it on just a small batch of 801 leads. And this is exactly the outcome, right? So the reason is, why does this even matter in the first place? A lot of businesses have a lot of leads that's been just stuck in their CRM, completely idle, and they don't really have like the manpower to slowly follow up one by one, right? So a lot of these dormant leads, they could be qualified, but we just wouldn't know, right? And the timing could be off. Obviously, when we reached out to them months ago, they were not qualified, and now times have changed. Maybe they are now able to be qualified for your services. So a lot of these things are just dormant there, and the only way we could try to reach out to as many of them as possible is to use AI. So again, what we did was we ran like a dead lead reactivation campaign, which is able to reach out to many people in a short amount of time. So again, how does this problem form? Over the past few years, they were able to collect all of these leads, things from inquiries, campaigns, forms, any ads that they're running, and it's just stuck there, right? No follow-ups, nothing. And for this company specifically, they were working on housing disrepair. So these things include things like damp, mold, leaks, any structural defects, failure in heating or hot water, long-term landlord neglect. So based on that, if you compensate, the compensation for these cases, for these claims, could be quite a big range, depending on how severe or minor the case is. Just to give you an idea, in the UK, we could kind of put them into 4 separate buckets. Things like minor cases, moderate, serious, and severe, right? And just to give you an idea, these are like 20 to 30%. Most of them are like minor. A lot of them goes into the moderate case, which is, this is the majority of it, right? So 40 to 55%. And then things like serious cases, severe cases, these are really, really expensive, much higher payout, right? These numbers are all taken from the UK sources. So this could be different in different countries in the US or anywhere else in Europe, but these are for numbers in the UK. So just to get an idea and understanding of how different compensation ranges could look like, right? Now, if we do the math, if we have humans actually try to reach out to every single one of those leads, of all the 35K, we can try to look at it in this way, right? Assuming a staff member makes about 300 calls a day, which is a lot of calls, by the way. So if we do that on all 35K, it would take around 116.7 days, which is basically 117 working days, right? 6 months of just one employee calling 300 leads every single day, right? And we don't even take into account things like follow-ups, updating the CRM, any notes, some calls may take a longer time, some calls are not there, you want to try to research a bit on each lead. We don't take into account all of those things, which is obviously going to increase the time it takes, right? And this is if they don't take any breaks, if they don't take any lunch breaks, they don't take any holidays, they don't take any days off, it takes at least 6 months to go through all 35,000 leads, right? And then if we look at a more realistic way of calculating this also include things like follow-ups, right? It requires objection handling, any note-taking, updating the CRM with notes, any qualification questions. We have to always follow up if they don't answer, or if they answer the call and they say they're not free now, call me back tomorrow or something like that. Those are things that we never even took into account. So a more realistic capacity is actually around 100 calls a day. And what does that mean? To go through all 35,000 leads, it would take almost an entire year of just calling people, right? And again, we never even take into account the salary that you're going to pay this employee for calling these leads every single day. So this is going to be a very long and tedious process, and it's going to cost the company maybe 30, 40K a year to just hire someone to call them up, right? So what does that mean in practice? To clear up all 35K, it would require at least one staff member calling an entire year, or you could hire a dedicated outbound team, which is basically just focusing on calling these leads one by one. And as a result, months of years to complete one database pass. It requires high labor costs, inconsistent follow-up, missed opportunities, and most of the time, companies just ignore them. And at the end of the day, it's not going to produce any outputs, right? You have a big database with all of these leads that could produce you some income, but ended up you don't even look at it, and it's just going to produce you zero. So the way we want to try to solve this is by building out a reactivation system. So what we want to do is try to call them up, every single person, one by one. We can perform up to 3 attempts, and this is a variable that we could change. We could do like 4, 5, 6, 10 different attempts if we want to. We want it to be able to speak naturally. So in the UK, we want it to have a proper accent. We want to actually categorize each call. So for every single call, what is the outcome, right? Are they interested? Are they not interested? Are they angry? Are they qualified at all? Do they even have this problem in the first place? So we want to do all of these automatically without any human involved, and only if the lead is actually a high intent and they actually still want to file claims, then we send those hot leads to human staff that's able to handle those people. So we're basically eliminating all of the unqualified leads, all using AI to handle, right? So that obviously is gonna, if you do the math, it's gonna save you a lot of time, right? So here's what the AI exactly handles, which requires zero human, right? It makes those calls, it greets them, it asks them questions, it tries to objection handle them, and it classifies every single outcome. For every call that's been made, transcripts, summaries, recordings, any metadata that you want to add in, any extra outcomes or any, you can also create like a calling rating system. So like an intent of them actually wanting to file a claim, or the intent of them just completely uninterested, right? It could be a number from 1 to 5 or like 1 to 10. All of these things would automatically be updated in the CRM, and this is done for every single call. It's all done from AI, right? So what we did for this company specifically is we had a test batch of 801 dormant leads, which is only about 2% of the entire database of 35K. So what we did was we tried to use these 801 to make a test to see how well it actually performed. So what it did was it make every single call, and based on the call outcomes, there are 1,290 calls that has been made. So these includes follow-up calls, any calls that's been called back, any inbound, right? So out of this 801, we made almost 1.3K calls. There are 388 actual conversations, minutes of the actual live conversations, 100% execution of multi-attempt rules, all call outcomes are stored and summarized, there's no human involved. So just to give you an idea, this is the actual pipeline outcome of how it worked. So we created a pipeline in Go High Level which categorizes each call. So they could be not interested. So just to give you an idea here. So they are not interested, no answer, not interested, do not call, schedule for follow-up, and then transfer to human. What we're actually interested is the transfer to human one, because these are the high intent calls. These are calls that actually have customers who want to continue with the service of filing claims and hopefully getting a compensation. So we are actually only interested in these ones. Schedule for follow-up, these are ones that are close and kind of on the edge, which we also want to try to follow up as soon as possible. But we also try to keep them and track them in its pipeline, right? And you can look at the numbers here. We had 801 opportunities, and 291 did not answer the call. 451 were not interested, means they picked up and like, don't call me back, I don't like this, I'm not interested. Do not call, obviously we just don't want to call them, they don't want them to call them. And then schedule a follow-up, they are semi-interested, and then transfer. Obviously these are the ones that are actually interested. So if you do the math, 2.2% of the leads actually only requires a human involved, which is 18 calls, which is a ton of time that's saved, because all of these calls here are completely handled by AI, right? And based on this, again, we are able to filter out all the low value calls. It's able to handle up to 98% of the workloads, and human staff only receive the high intent cases, which is what we want, and which is what most companies want. In the UK, again, I want to give you a reminder of how the compensation range looks like. There are minor, moderate, serious, and severe cases. So what is the worst case scenario, right? Based on this outcome that we did for this company, out of these 18 intent opportunities, what is the worst case scenario? Assuming all 18 intents are, they fall under the minor cases, right? If you do 18 times 1K, the total compensation could still be up to 18,000, right? And this, keep in mind, this is the compensation values that goes to the tenant, not to the company, right? So the company actually takes in a lot less than this. But what happens is, basically, for this, a claims management company works is, for the compensation that's provided to the tenant, if the claims are successful, what happens is these companies or the solicitors actually take a percentage of the claim. So assuming the claim is $1,000 in compensation, typically the solicitors take around 25 to 50% in terms of this actual payment, right? So maybe out of this 1K, they would take home 250 or 500, right? So it's in that range. So worst case scenario, 18,000 goes to the compensation and they take home around 25 to 50% to the company. If we look in a more realistic scenario based on the percentages or the proportions of each cases, 9 moderate cases at 3K, 6 serious cases, and then 3 minor cases, right? A realistic compensation amount would actually amount to 89,250, which is a lot more than what we actually think, right? And obviously the best case scenario is if most of them fall in the higher severe cases, this could go up to over 200K. But again, we want to use the realistic scenario because that's, it's more realistic, right? So what does these compensation values mean? So as I explained, basically the company takes a percentage of these compensation, right? So most UK claims firms operate on a no-win, no-fee basis. So the way it works is they file these claims completely for free, and only if they win the claims, then they charge a success fee. But if they don't win, then the tenant doesn't actually need to pay anything, right? They don't get any compensation. The company don't get anything. And again, the fee typically range from 25 to 50%, which includes the VAT, which is the UK version of sales tax. So based on this case study here, what we actually want to use is maybe like a midpoint. So we take the number of 37.5 and using the realistic number here of 89K, if we do the math here, that's just from these 18 cases that we got, that amounts to 33,468 in potential revenue. And this is just a test batch of 801 dormant leads, right? If we do this for the entire 35K, you can see the potential in this, all right? So again, these are leads that's previously not contacted and generated 0. So this is a big opportunity if you have a very big database of untouched leads that you want to try to recover and regenerate over time. So if you try to scale this up to the full potential of all 35K leads, if we use the same numbers, so we have 801 leads that produced 18 high intent cases, and we can estimate out of the 35K, we would amount to around 786 high intent cases. So a realistic value per case could be around 4.9, which is about 5K. Full compensation could amount to almost 3.9 mil. And if we could do the math again from the win success rate, this could be a 7-figure potential for your company if you have a large database of untouched leads. Right, I'm going to repeat that. It's almost a 7-figure potential, right? So this is a big system that a lot of company wants because they don't really have a system currently in place that's going to slowly manually follow up with every single lead that they have in their database. So this is how we did it, right? The entire reactivation pipeline was built using a combination of AI voice technology and workflow automation. So we use voice agents, right? And then we use n8n to build a lot of the backend logic stuff. Again, the goal was to create leads, call leads automatically, handle conversations, make decisions during the call, schedule follow-up, and then transfer high-intent cases. Obviously, it's also going to record transcripts and update the CRM on its own, right? For this specific use case, these are the tech stack. We use things like ChatDash, Go High Level, Twilio, Vapi, and n8n. ChatDash is where we run the outbound campaigns. We upload the leads here. We run the outbound campaign to set the timing where it calls, any fallbacks, and you could also have dashboards where you can check the outcomes of the calls. Go High Level is the CRM that they were using. Twilio is just for the phone numbers. Vapi is where we build out the voice agent itself. And then N8N is where we build out the logic at the backend. To give you an idea of the system overview, basically we put in leads again to ChatDash, and then it calls them up one by one automatically. AI handles the entire call, greeting, qualification, objection handling, and then it follows high intent calls. At the end of every single call, all of this information is logged. It goes into N8N. N8N processes the entire thing, and then the outcomes will be automatically updated in Go High Level. So we build out the pipeline as I mentioned here, and it's all automatically updated. There's no humans involved. So flowchart here, leads go into ChatDash, run using appropriate campaign settings. Obviously, you don't want to be calling them at like 2 a.m. in the morning. So all of these things could be set inside ChatDash. We start the outreach using Vapi, N8N end of call, and then we update the Go High Level pipeline. So this was a pipeline, as I mentioned. We have no answer, not interested, do not call. Obviously, this is very flexible. We could add in a lot more stages depending on the specific use case. In this case here is a very simple one, do not call, and then transfer it. So each outcome triggers different automations. So every time a new lead goes into each stages, there are certain automations that we trigger as well. So for example, schedule follow-up, we also trigger some sort of automations that's built internally inside Go High Level. And then transfer to human, again, we also have some automations that's done in the backend. So in terms of the outbound logic, here's how it pretty much looks like. Very simple use case here. It makes those outbound call. It checks if they actually pick up the call or not. So if the lead don't pick up, it goes down here. We try to reattempt again to call them the second time. This could be in the next 5-10 minutes or the next day. And we could actually repeat this process 2 or 3 times to follow up with them as many times as possible. If they do pick up, it goes on with the call as usual. Again, sometimes the lead may not be free when they pick up the call. So when they pick up the call, we determine the callback time, schedule the call, and the call. If they're actually free to speak, we ask if they're interested in filing a claim again, if they have any issues with their homes, any damp or mold or anything like that. If they're not interested, we try to reattempt to engage. We have a database of objection handling of how we could have the conversation and try to buy them in again to win them back as a customer. And if they still don't want it, obviously we want to end the call, we don't want to force it. But if they do, and then we transfer the agent and the human will take over. These are the high intent ones. So yeah, very quick flowchart. Before and after, again, before this, the company had zero way of structuring out this entire reactivation campaign. It's everything manual. There's no monetization at all. There's no visibility into how much opportunity they are in terms of all of the leads that they have, which is a big, large database of 35K. And after working with us, we're able to actually automate every single call. We have done this for a small, tiny sample, and we're going to plan to probably roll it out for all of them over the next few months. So automated call summaries, everything all done, CRM updates very quickly. There are 18 high intent opportunities from just a tiny sample of 800 leads. This is 33,468 worth of realistic revenue. And then again, if we do it across all 35K, it's a multi-million-dollar potential at scale. So the final takeaway is most businesses have thousands of leads sitting in their CRM, right? A lot of these leads could be previously qualified, previously unqualified. They could come from many different sources, from ads, from campaigns that you run, any outbound, any door-to-door. If you have a large database of leads that you want to try to recover, this is something that we could try to help you out with, right? We're able to build out this entire system from start to finish, end to end. We run this through. We could have it as a quick small test batch. Like for example, like this one, you have 800 leads. That's uncovered quite a lot of revenue potential. It's where obviously all of these things are handled automatically. No humans involved. And if your CRM has been growing for months or years, even if you only have maybe 2,000, 3,000 leads, that could equate to some sort of revenue intent there, right? You want to try to cover as much as possible because they are probably hidden and you don't even realize it. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it. If you think this is something that you want to discover for your business and you think you have a lot of leads that you want to try to recover, just let me know. Feel free to book a call with me with the link in the description, and hopefully we can recover as much potential as possible. So yeah.